Today, Ashlyn and I were talking. So Bruce Lee talked about the fluidity of water. He said you need to be like water. You need to be formless and shapeless. And you need to be able to switch between the destructive power of water and the restorative power of water, the softness of it, the ability of it to change its surroundings as well as to fit the surroundings that are impeding on it. And so this morning, after I dropped the kids off, Ashlyn and I were talking, and she had been walking through a mentality shift, I'll just leave it at that, when it came to some of the stuff that she was doing. And she confided in me and said that she is trying to get to a space where she's fluid, trying to be more fluid of a person in some of her professional spaces. And so we talked about the difference between fluidity and adaptability. And this is just connotatively, this isn't denotatively, this is not like a Oxford dictionary says this. This is us just talking about our own perceptions of the two different words. And so she said that how she views the differences between fluidity and adaptability is fluidity is the ability, from her definition, of her to be able to change and mold and fit whatever it is that the current season or current situation is calling for. And she said the adaptability is as if you're responsive to whatever's happening. I said, okay, cool. I think I understand what you're trying to say. And it was really profound when she made that distinction of, I'm not trying to be adaptable, I'm trying to be fluid. And what I took from her was, and here's what I think I gathered. I said, okay, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that adaptability is almost as if it's taking you more than just the immediacy of needing a response to respond and to adapt to the change in the environment, but you can change. It's not that you're stagnant and you just can't change whatsoever. It's just that it may take some time or some extra pressure to do so. And so from that, I realized, and I've been thinking about something like this more recently, like how there's a difference between what people say is like being malleable. And that's like taking, and I made this analogy, I said adaptability is like being like clay. And I brought up the Bruce Lee quote where he says you need to be water, you need to be like water. Fluidity is water. And so if we take the differences between those two, they both can fit their containers and both can fit the pressures that are put against them. However, water needs almost no pressure except for gravity if you're in a gravitational field. But you talk about clay, and clay holds the shape of whatever form or whatever mold or whatever pressure was put against it, even if it's transferred out of that container or mold or area of pressure, until there's enough pressure to go against its own strength and push it into a new design. So clay can fit any container, softened clay can fit any container, but it takes a little bit of pressure to get it to fit that container, right? However, water, you pour water into a cup, it takes the shape of a cup immediately. You pour it out of the cup, it takes the shape of the countertop. Or if you pour the cup into a bowl, it takes the shape of the bowl. If you pour it into a bottle, it takes the shape of the bottle. You hold it in your hand, it takes the shape of your hand. And it does that immediately. There's no transition. And so with that being the case, she said she's trying to be like that. She's trying to be someone who can fit any scenario that's needed with her professional experience and with what she's doing in some of the areas that she's in right now. And we took it even further. We said that we feel like everybody's kind of in between one of those two. She said she's in that season, and then I said myself, I'm in the season of trying to be more like clay, where I don't have to adapt so readily to the situation that I'm in. I need to be able to hold and retain some shape in doing so. And I think that's something that we can all glean from this, is there's a difference between being a shapeshifter and changing who you are. And there's another aspect of it, and that's what she pointed out. She said, now people will take this and be like, whoa, wait, so you're saying I need to change myself? And the answer is no, you don't need to change yourself. Because if you take wet clay and you put it into a container, it's still wet clay. It's just a different shape of wet clay. You're not changing your identity. This is what Ashlyn had said. So with that being the case, when you think about yourself as clay, as wet clay or water, you're not changing your identity from being wet clay or water. You're changing the shape that you take on in still being wet clay or water. You're supposed to present yourself in a different way, but not outside of your own identity. And that was the point that she made. And I was like, a word. And so we were just having this dialogue this morning, and I was like, yeah, I definitely need to hear this. I definitely need to talk about how everybody is in a space where they're trying to be one or the other if they're trying to move in a place of growth. And I think anybody who comes onto this platform, anybody who has talked to me about stuff that they're walking through, want to be in one of those two camps of growth. And so I think about myself, I think about how I've been for most of my life like a people pleaser. And I didn't just change my shape, I did change my identity to fit the situation that I was in, or fit the circumstances around me. And learning to unlearn that and to move in a space where I'm still holding true to who I am while fitting the situation that I'm in has been one of the most pivotal things that I could have done in my life. And I'm still working on it, but changing from water to wine is something only Jesus can do, not something that I should do. And when it comes to being clay, I mean, you can go so deep with this analogy. You could be like, yeah, if you're clay, then you constantly need to be moving, you constantly need to be molded, or else you're going to dry out and crack. And at that point, you need to be ground up by the molder and then put back into the kiln when you're mixed back with water to become that clay. And then you just, like, there's so many ways you can go about it. But as for today, the main difference between clay and water is that water fits anything immediately. And liquid water does not allow for external pressure to change its density. Whereas clay, you can press on it and you can really squeeze it as much as possible. And there's a point where you can continue to go past and make it denser and denser. Of course, there's a limit, but you can continue to do that. Water, you can't do that. But water fits any situation. Clay doesn't necessarily, until it has the right amount of pressure to make it fit. There's benefits to both. There's detriments to both. But if you're in the season of one, don't despise the other. Think about how you can be both in different areas of your life. And I think that's where we'll find the most growth. If you found this helpful, subscribe. Me and my wife have these conversations all the time. Excuse the sweat. Yeah, it's very hot in the car. So I'm just chilling in the car outside after work. If you found this helpful, subscribe. Like the video if you found it helpful as well. And I will catch y'all in the next random pillow thoughts in the middle of the day with my wife. Till next time. Peace.